In India, women make up nearly 10 to 12% of the boardrooms, a figure which, while improving, is still a reflection of the larger societal and cultural barriers that persist. The lessons that we therefore draw from successful women leaders who have made it to the top is invaluable. Today, our esteemed panel of experts and leaders will share their successful journeys, their insights, their experiences on how women can lead with courage and purpose and conviction in the corporate world. Together, we will discuss about the strategies that have worked, the challenges that remain, and the solutions that can empower women in India to rise to the top of their fields. Our fireside chat today is not just about celebrating accomplishments, but it is about empowering each one of us to contribute to creating a more inclusive and equitable future where women not just occupy a space at the table, but also shape the decisions that matter. We are here together to learn, to inspire, and to drive change. The structure that we'll follow today is an introduction of the panelists, following by a sharing of their insights, and the last 10 minutes or so will be devoted to question and answers. So here we go, folks, and it is my absolute pleasure to welcome and introduce you to our panelists. We'll start with Geethaa George. Geethaa is ever youthful and has a career spanning over 3 decades in HR and business. She brings deep expertise in organizational culture, organizational change, management, and institutionalizing talent manager and succession management strategies. She's currently the Senior Executive VP at HDFC Bank. And apart from her core HR portfolio, she also manages the Center of Excellence in Organizational Development, OD and Change, DEI, Wellness, and HR Analytics. So it's a very, very extensive portfolio. Geethaa is also an ardent proponent of the unlimited potential of human beings, and she passionately champions inclusion and social impact as central to responsible business. Geethaa, we are absolutely delighted to have you with us. Thank you so much for joining. Ajanta Chatterjee is our other panelist. Ajanta is the group head of talent management, learning, leadership development, diversity and inclusion at JSW. As an OD and leadership development expert, Ajanta has deep and diverse experiences across industries in building a strategic focus towards culture through employee development and engagement. With extensive experience in managing core talent and L&D functions across diverse sectors, she brings invaluable inputs to this panel discussion. So thank you, Ajanta, for being here, and we welcome you on behalf of all of us. Our third panelist is Smiti Bhatt Deorah, and she's the co-founder and COO of Advantage Club, which is a global employee experience platform, empowering employers to engage meaningfully with their employees and drive employee satisfaction. Smiti comes with a master's degree from the University of California, LA, and she worked with Microsoft in the US before coming back to India to start Advantage Club. She is amazing in her vision, in her leadership and expertise, which has got her enormous number of accolades, and I can't even tell those. She's also a TEDx speaker. So we are very, very happy to have you with us, Smiti. And thank you for agreeing to be part of this. So the first question to the panelists is, what are some moments that have shaped you as a woman leader? So I would invite, any of you to start, but I'd like all of you to definitely answer this question.
I think when I was reading the question, I know there were 2 parts of it: women leader and leader. I think at some point of time, the whole everything emerges, kind of merges, and then you are actually build yourself as a leader. Specific to women leader, I will go back to my banking days when I was working with one of the large banks and the multinational banks, and I had to travel 15 days a month.
Oh,
And with a young child at home, there was this whole stereotype of or bias. How can she, right? However, my whole attitude was, how can I do more for larger exposure? So I would say, that was one of the pivotal moments. And then when I was working with telecom, the whole bit was how can you create more visibility with the right credibility? I think as women leaders, at times we kind of take a back seat and, really don't push ourselves enough to create the visibility, the credible visibility with the senior most stakeholders. I think these are the two moments which kind of defined my leadership journey, and especially the function which I manage. It has been a very early call in my career where I do not want to go the HR generalist role, but to grow in the talent and L&OD space. And hence, for my function, creating the visibility within business becomes extremely important. And I think that is what I have learned and has been one of the most defining moments in my career.
thank you. I think that's really very, very significant for all of us who are growing in leadership, that, to make sure that you create the right networks as you go ahead. Thank you.
Well, I would say that there have been many defining moments in my career, like it would be for many of us who have spent 3 decades or more in the working corporate industry. However, one particular one that I would say has been like a game changer for me was when I was leading a IT education firm based out of Pune, one of the branches based out of Pune, for a large organization in 1997 or 8, way back. And we had a leadership transformation trainer who was hired by the corporate office to come and do a breakthrough training intervention. And this was to kind of unlock potential at the leadership level and things like that. These 4-5 day OD labs that really kind of shake you up. So I was a participant in this program, and I was also heading the team, one of the teams at that time. And we did this 5-day workshop, and at the end of that workshop, I was left with many, soul searching questions about who am I, what am I doing, kind of things. And I thought it was very, very impactful. But after about 2.5 weeks of that program ending, this gentleman who was leading the workshop came in to do a check-in with all the participants. And in that check-in conversation, and I remember this half-day conversation, I remember half-hour conversation, and remember also, what I was wearing, where I was sitting, all of that, because it did turn out to be a defining moment in my career, where he asked me if this is all. He looked around the cabin, he looked at me and said, is this all that you are defining yourself as? Isn't there more to Geethaa? What else would you like to do? I mean, is this all? Is this the end of this? Is this the extent of your imagination of where you want to be? And this was in a small office in the campsite of Pune at that time. And within 6 months of that conversation, I had taken up an offer to move into the RPG group as head of learning and talent, and moved to Bombay eventually, and have spent the next 25 years here. But if not for that conversation, and later on, I will certainly emphasize that there are mentors and people who kind of nudge you along, who come along the way, and that can be anybody. And for me, I will be grateful for this person's contribution in my career and life, because it's about questioning your paradigm, questioning what is the success definition for you in your head. And for me, I switched a very successful career in sales and moved to HR at that point in time. So it was defining for me for sure.
Very nice, Geetha. And I think the power of let's say a probing question really got you
Yeah,
thinking. So
absolutely.
thank you so much. And Smiti, what would be your response to this?
Yeah, so first of all, thank you, Anu, for inviting me here, and it's an absolute pleasure to be among the panelists and the attendees. I think a defining moment for me is also very similar to what I think Geethaa, Ajanta, both they said. And for me, when I was working with Microsoft in the US, I was actually in the software engineering domain. So I was a technology person, and one of the things which I feel has made a huge difference in me running a venture, which is a technology venture, is my understanding of both technology and business. But it's not easy when you are a technology person to move into the business side of things, especially when you're in a large giant like Microsoft with like 100,000 employees and all of that. So I remember I always wanted to, I was very fascinated with the business side of things, and we were part of SQL Azure, and I always wanted to deal with customers and I always wanted to get into that. But it's not easy for you to just get into your product meetings or go in front of a customer. So every week, I would just go and, literally eat my PM's head that, can I join you in a meeting? Can I join you in a meeting? Which was really unusual for a technology person to do. But I think eventually, once he did let me join, there was a client called Pottermore, and I'm a huge Harry Potter fan, and I was a kid back then. So I just went crazy and I said that you have to let me in this meeting. So he finally agreed. And in Microsoft, I think there was one challenge which PMs and devs used to face, is that the people who were interacting with customers and the team who was actually building the products, they did not sync with each other. So what a customer would ask, and a manager, a customer product manager would go and commit, the technology guy would then come and say, we can't do that. So there was always a tiff between the two teams. And I think as a young person in my career, I identified that as a gap. And when I finally went to that meeting, I was like actually able to contribute to that meeting, because as a technology person in front of a customer, I was able to bridge that gap and I was able to bring that value. So that was a very early learning for me, that one, if you want to switch to something else, or if you want to do more, you have to strive and work harder to get it. Similar to what Ajanta said, that you have to grab those opportunities. It won't just come knocking at your door. And secondly, you need to understand what is the value you're bringing to the table. So you need to be somebody who is bringing an additional value which others are not able to bring, and that makes a difference in everybody's lives. And that's how I switched to customer management in Microsoft, which was unheard of, at least for many, many years in our office. And I think that has been a very defining moment in my career, where it helped me understand how business relationships work along with technology.
Thank you. I think all three of you have something similar, and yet it's been different. And I'd like to just pose the next question, which to some extent Geetha, kind of answered, which is that, as we grow in our leadership roles, we do recognize that, of course, it is our own initiative, our own value addition, etc. But there are many, many people who kind of nudge, support, confront, trouble us, and get us to do something which is outside of our comfort zone. So have there been any sponsors, mentors, coaches, role models? If you can kind of elaborate on whether they have played a role in your leadership journey, that'll be nice. And Smiti, we can start with you now.
Okay. So yeah, so in terms of mentors, there have been so many, especially I think if I talk about my professional journey in Microsoft, I think there I was like a young kid on the job, and I had my manager, I had my mentor, they shaped me as a professional. One of my managers, I think her name was Hao. She was Chinese. She was in one of my teams where I worked. she used to say, and there's some lines which just stick with you, right? So she used to say that people become their best productive selves if the company takes care of them, because then they feel they're obligated to take care of the company as well. And it's such a simple message, right? Where people will end up giving their everything to organizations who will recognize them, who will pay them well, who will take care of them and make them feel like they belong. Even in my venture journey, we've had so many mentors. There was a gentleman named Varun, who was the founder of Aspiring Minds. He was pivotal in helping us shape the venture initially in our initial days. Then we had a lot of investors and board members who joined us over time. One of our current investors, Mr. Manu Rikhe, he was the CEO of Encore Capital, and now he runs Mirac Ventures. He meets us every time he comes from Singapore to India, and he guides us. So I personally feel that mentors are not just professional guides, they also eventually end up guiding you on a personal front. Because slowly, when you start dealing with them, you build that kind of a relationship, and they kind of become a guiding light to you whenever you feel like you need to talk to somebody. So I definitely believe in having mentors, like Geetha also mentioned.
Thank you, thank you. So nice, because I think we realize that we are not really alone. Of course, there are a lot of people who create problems, but many people who are supporters also. Geetha, you mentioned about that other gentleman, of course, but apart from that, any other people?
Yeah, his name is Anand David. I thought since I spoke so much about him, I should say this. Anand David was the proprietor for a firm called Manford Alliance, who was into breakthrough leadership and OD training. Continues to do that based out of Delhi. I spent the next 5 years with him, and have been one of my steepest learning curves. And I remember one particular instance when we were going to go to meet a client together. And I was exactly 1.5 minutes late to reach the place where we were supposed to go from there together. And he was not there. And then I thought I'm early, so I should just wait for some time. And then I waited for 5-10 minutes. There was no mobile phones at that time, so I didn't know what happened. I thought he just didn't turn up. But later, I came to know that he had left, and then he told me that that's not okay. We are going to meet a client, and it's just not okay that you didn't turn up on time. Now, these are, like you said, there are some people who nudge you, some people who push you, some people who challenge you. I would give a lot of credit to my colleagues and bosses who, over the years, have expected far more from me than what I expected from myself. And I think it gave me the space to grow beyond what I thought I could do. Till it became second nature to me eventually. But in the early days when I was still young, and there is always this boundary you put around yourself that this is what you can do, what you can't do. And there are many such leaders who came along and challenged that expectation that you have of yourself. I fondly remember Ganesh Natarajan, who continues to be a good friend of mine, who was at the time CEO for Aptech, the company that I was part of. Eventually also was CEO of Zensar and head of NASCOM for a long time, and continues to be very active in the IT and entrepreneurial space. Ganesh was another leader who continuously nudged me and continues to do today. He keeps, every time I talk to him, he says, "What are you doing at the bank? There is, the world outside is waiting for you," and stuff. So I think people like this, it has a huge role to play in shaping your career, but also people in your family, sometimes your own children, I think have the power to bring out a realization or a nudge in the right way. And I think I have been blessed from that point of view, to have a lot of people, like they say, to make a successful career for a woman, you need a village and more than a village. So in my case, I would say that is very true. And if I look back, I have many, many people who have nudged me along in moments of doubt, have brought in clarity, have been sounding boards for me to bounce off ideas and thoughts. I remember Arvind Agarwal very fondly as well now, because I recall I moved from Pune to Bombay. My young son was only 2 years, not even about actually 18 months old that time. And we lived in Pune, and I moved to Bombay, took up this job. And my family continued to be in Pune for a year post that. And I would travel back every Friday evening in the new expressway that time, and back on a Monday morning to be with my young son and 5-year-old daughter. And Arvind was absolutely brilliant support to me during that time, and said, I can do this. So don't worry, you will be able to handle it. Just believe in yourself, and you will be able to do it. And I was in two minds when I took up that offer, but I just went along because he had more faith in me at that time than I did on myself. So I think
Yeah.
I have many people to thank.
Yes, thank you. And thanks for that, Geetha. Ajanta, you're the last one on this.
I think, the whole thing is many of them. My managers played a very important role. And I guess at every point of time, whoever I was working with, they either pushed me off the edge, threw me into the deep waters, and then, swam in, fought back, and then, found my space to work on. I think they are the organizations that I worked with. They had very, very senior talent professionals, especially the banks in those days, Merrill, Bank of America, Standard Chartered. OD was a department which was extremely sought after because it brought in all the intellectual bit to the whole organization. And I have seen many of them taking cutting edge decisions on organization, succession plan, cultural setups. And I was always looking up to them by saying that, wow, most probably that is what I want to do. And that's the role which I want to, kind of aspire for. So tons of role models, and few of them I just mentioned. And I guess what my mentors have done along the way is empowered me. I think empowerment has become one of the very, very critical bit of whatever I'm doing today. It is not very easy to keep on doing talent and L&D in the HR world. So the pivot is always towards, the HR business partner, the CHRO. I have remained very true to the cause because not only it comes from a place of passion, but I have seen examples right in front of me who have done this extremely, very, very important organizational changes. And also, while they were doing that, and while I was being a part of their team, empowered me to take many of the bold decisions which I keep on doing today. So, all my managers, to name, good or bad, threw me into the deep waters or lifted me up. But I guess that's how mentoring works at the end of the day.
And it's really nice to hear this because sometimes, it's leadership can be a lonely journey and you really look around for support. And Ajanta, since we just concluded, I'm just going to ask you the next question, which is that, your role in is very interesting because you work on the cusp of leadership and culture. So
Right.
I wanted to understand, and for the benefit of all of listeners, that uh, in your experience, what are the cultural shifts that are required to be made in organizations that will have the most significant impact when we are talking about a more inclusive leadership pipeline in organizations?
Right. And very interesting question because leadership and culture goes hand in hand. You cannot build a certain kind of culture without the right kind of leadership. Now, when I look into the manufacturing world, which I am in today, I think one of the biggest pivot that we are driving here is moving from a command and control leadership style to a more collaboration, solutioning, and co-creation. Command and control comes very naturally to an organization which is growing very, very fast. And that is a style which has seen the organization grow to a certain level and then changing that whole mindset. And I think as a leader, irrespective of the business that you are managing, to possess the courage and the resilience to stay the course, especially when we are talking about DEI, and demonstrate a high level of empathy and authenticity. And inclusivity has to be the core of the leader. It has to be the core of who you are. It cannot be just a lip service, because if you're doing that, then it won't be sustainable. It won't be a sustainable journey. So, and integrating it into your organization's fabric by making it central to all the business strategies that you are doing, I think where the whole culture piece and the leadership comes hand in hand. But really making it core, really making it that the central of the belief, the kind of organization that I want to run. I think that is a kind of a coming together of culture and leadership. It can't be we cannot do it overnight. It is a journey. But creating those compelling situations for the leadership to look at whether it is DI, whether the cultural shift that we want to do becomes very important. I can give you an example of Vodafone. It was again extremely sales-driven organization, telecom in its heydays, and command and control. Coming from the top, and everybody is running for execution. And however, there was a point of time when Martin, who was our CEO at that point of time, always talked about coaching, and he always talked about how can I help these leaders to bring in coaching as one of the fabrics of their leadership style, so that as the organization is growing, there is some element of looking at a different kind of leadership rather than the one which they are doing now, and hence that's an example where the business head is thinking about a different kind of leadership style. And I guess that is the beginning of a cultural shift.
Absolutely right.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
the messages are there from and in this case, a male leader. I think it brings
yes,
in a lot of positive changes.
yes.
Thank you for that. And Smiti, if I could just invite you to share, see, you lead a fast-growing tech company. And, as a woman, I'm sure as you've been growing in this career, there must have been some very unique challenges you face to establish credibility, trust, and confidence in you as a leader. Could you just take us through how you managed to do that?
For AdvantageClub.ai, we registered the company back in 2014, and we started doing our partnerships in 2015 before fully going live in 2016, and the rest is history. So this was like 10 years ago, right? Back then, if you think of 10 years ago, the startup culture in India, it had just started. We only had Flipkart, and we didn't even have Amazon. Back then, Amazon used to be called jungly.com or something, and nobody knew about it. So it was very unusual for people to encounter entrepreneurs. Forget about a woman entrepreneur. That was like out of the syllabus for everyone. So I remember when I'd go and meet a lot of people, I'd hear things like, oh, it's so surprising to see a woman run a tech company. I mean, you would never tell a man that. I mean, it kind of comes naturally. Okay, it's technology, so it's going to be a man running it. Even initially, when we started off, I think we were a small team, 10, 15 people, mostly technology folks and a few sales folks here and there. So me and my co-founder Saurav, we both started this. And while both of us we were coding during the night and selling during the day. But at the same time, we just did like a partial division that I'm going to take care of the business piece and he's going to take care of the technology piece. So I remember the tech teams we hired, they would not take me seriously as a technology person. I mean, it would come pretty naturally for my co-founder to be like the main tech guy, and they just probably just assume that, I mean, maybe I did some sifarish in Microsoft and that's why they hired me. But it was funny. So it was interesting that male leadership in technology and in a lot of areas, actually, it just comes so naturally to people. And as women, you have to prove yourself. But if that is the case, then that is the case, right? So I remember once my co-founder was traveling, and there was some major architecture issue which happened, and I jumped in and I got that resolved. And I could see the visible surprise on their faces that she knows technology. And I think after that, they started coming to me for help. I had to do that once, but I had to do that. Even when I was running business teams, I remember initially I would, probably in a lot of cases be taken for granted. So I started joining every meeting with every person who would join at least once, make them shadow me in my meetings to really make them believe that, okay, I know how to run a business. And that was strange. I mean, you're the founder, people are supposed to expect to do that. But as a woman, I think you have to keep proving yourself over and over again. And that's a very interesting learning I've had over time. Now, of course, we've come a long way, and with at least in India, with the market leader in our category. But these were like fun, interesting things which used to happen in our earlier days. And as a vendor partner, also, when you're starting a new company, you have to do everything you can to establish credibility. So back then, we got large company CEOs, COs, leaders on our advisory board, which would establish that credibility. We got all technology certifications done to have enterprises, kind of believe in us and start with us. We did pilots for early adapters. We took testimonials from early successes. And I think that helped us start the journey a decade ago.
Very, very interesting, and thanks for sharing that. It's a tough journey, but I think what you're saying is that today there's credibility, and today it's not the same as when you started. I just wanted to understand that, a lot of the work that your Advantage Club does is on employee recognition and, building communities. Now, we all know that it's very important that women form these peer networks and they have these mentors and support groups around them to grow in their career. So, how can technology be leveraged to make all this happen for women?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And peer connections, especially for women women professionals, becomes paramount for their growth. I think from a technology standpoint, there are a lot of platforms, like we do that as well, where you could have communities being built for women to support other women. So from a diversity, equity, inclusion initiative standpoint, also you could have groups of like-minded people, network of women, mentor-mentee groups, where you could have like women leaders mentoring young women who are coming in the organization, not only from like a career growth standpoint, but also from understanding, how they can navigate some challenges in their lives. I've seen organizations create things like new parent support groups as well, especially for women who are undergoing that change. When you are off work for 6 months and you're coming back, it's a different challenge altogether. So you can utilize technology to have women be part of these networks and communicate with one another and feel like you're not alone. And there are other people who have gone that same journey before or are going that journey with you and can support each other. From a leadership development standpoint, also, while of course there are a lot of learning and development programs which companies run, here also you can have, I've seen organizations utilize technology to create these virtual leadership cohorts where there could be, say, 20, 30 women who come meet with a leader. Now everything can be done digitally itself. You don't need to have everyone in the room. Once in a month or once in a quarter, discuss challenges and kind of get mentorship from the leader. In a way, the leader's only spending like maybe 30 minutes in a quarter to mentor women. But for those women, that 30 minutes is invaluable for them to get their questions answered. So definitely technology can help in these areas for women development.
Very nice, very nice. Good to hear that, because I think we are looking for something. I mean, all these forums do exist, but even a tech version of these will make a lot of difference. Thank you for sharing, Ajanta. I just also, we all know that now the government has mandated a certain percentage of women to be on the board, and many organizations have taken up I'm just using the word quotas for women leadership at different levels. So obviously everyone is recognizing that there is a need for more inclusivity, for more gender equity in the workplace. But how do you get people to, I mean, knowing is one thing, but how do you get organizations and leaders, to really feel it from the heart? I mean, when they see a business case of it, how can that be established in organizations?
Right. So, I know since I have personal journey, I have moved from various sectors. So the whole DI journey takes a different shape and form depending on which industry you're coming from. Banking, we spoke, right? There has been women leaders at the top. In tech, in services, you have a kind of gender ratio which will range from 25 to 30% depending upon what kind of organization you are working. Now bring that whole thing to manufacturing, which is more traditional setup, where most of the work are happening at the factories setup. And what I keep on, telling, especially within JSW, that none of the steel factories were built keeping women in mind. And when you are talking about DEI in a manufacturing setup, then the conversation and the whole dialogue becomes very, very, very different. But I would, depending on which situation you are coming from, which organization you are representing, what helps is create more visible scenarios for leadership team to act. It has to be a visible scenario. It has something which is more data driven, which they can take a decision on. When I joined JSW, I think it was while the intent was there of DI, there was nothing structured, and it was not a priority at that point of time. However, there were women in the organization, and hence the visible case started by holding career conversations with women at the plant location on various dimensions like environment, personal, organization, professional. Interesting, they came back saying that we would want more to happen in the environment that we work in and on the professional side of it. One of my key takeaways of that career conversation was parental concern versus treating women equally. So when I'm working in a team with my line manager saying, "Hey, you cannot do that because you're a woman, and I am safeguarding you," so that becomes a parental concern versus equally. So then you take that data point and then go back to the leadership team and then say that these are the cultural context. This is where we want to change.
Yeah.
So to your question, the one line answer is create more visible scenarios for leadership to act on. So do the back end job first, and then kind of front end.
So it can't just be, I'm telling and therefore there's a case for it. I think you create these scenarios so that it's easier for people to do it.
Exactly.
Yeah, thank you. And Geethaa, welcome back. So, we can go back to what is HDFC Bank currently doing to grow women leaders?
The sector has actually given some of the biggest names in women leaders in the country. Also, if we look at the male-female ratio across industries, other than maybe IT, BFSI sector would have the largest number of women workforce. At the bank itself, we have about 55,000 women we employ, which roughly translates into about 26.7% of our total workforce. Of course, can this be 30? Can this be 40? Most certainly, yes. So the sector, like all other organizations, face this middle management issue. So at the bottom of the pyramid, young women, educated young women want to come and join, and now every young woman who's educated in most parts of the country wants to make a career for themselves, and they come and join. But between the age group of 26 to 35, we lose them. Not, I mean, for instance, we have a 34% gender ratio at this middle, at the lower band of the organization, which employs, say, over 1 lakh of people at that band. But the minute it moves to the middle management, by the time they get to 27, 28, 29, that numbers become single digit. And obviously, the reasons are not unique to the bank. It is true for every other sector that the personal priorities, the personal, milestones of somebody, of a young woman's life, kind of coincides with their career milestones as well. And organizations, I think the biggest shift we can do is to make these 10 years, 8 to 10 years, smooth for their women workforce. Towards that, in the last 7, 8 years, we have kind of put together many very specific solutions that could address a majority of these problems. We still don't have problems to all of that. We still continue to lose women who want to step back and let other things take priority in their career, in their lives. So that happens. But for instance, I think I have briefly heard somebody say that when you step back from your career to take care of your children, the maternity break and post that extended break, you come back and you're already few steps behind your male colleague who probably started along with you. So we are doing our best to see how best to ensure that she comes back and starts at the level footing, whether it is in terms of performance rating, protection during the time she was away, or giving her the benefit of those years that she has been away for maternity or childcare purposes. So that's one big message going to women in the bank, that says that we are in support of your life journeys. The second is, of course, to give them flexibility. Flexibility is big for young mothers. And like I remember when I came back from my ML, it was exactly 90 days, and you had to join back on the 91st day. There was nothing like, an extended break or whatever. But today, after the mandatory 6 months that all organizations will give, we are saying that if she can move into a role that allows for hybrid, she could work, she could kind of spend longer time with the young baby and take her time to come back. She could work from home where roles in which it is possible. She could take time flexibility. So all kinds of flexibilities that are possible, that I think that we are allowing. Plus the gap that you have, the year or two that you take a break, there is some serious, you are away from the workplace, and that sets you back a little bit. So in terms of keeping you abreast with what's happening, skill building and enhancement, that is another investment that we're also parallelly doing. So we are doing our best to see that we continue to move people up, the young women up the ladder. Over the last 3 years, we have introduced something called the Career Accelerator Program, which identifies high potential young women at this mid bracket and accelerates their career through progressions and role enhancements and training to see that they move up the funnel faster. So, yeah, many solutions to the problem, because there is no one size fits all in this.
No, I think we have to
Yeah,
do multiple things. Women
right.
themselves have to do multiple things for
That's
themselves.
right.
And our
Absolutely.
workplaces also have to enable that, then it
Correct.
works. So
Right.
really nice to hear that, Geetha. And I think at this stage we'll open it to any question and answer questions from the participants, and then I would request you all to answer one question, and then we'll close.
Yeah, I have one question for Smiti. Are there any best practices in Advantage Club where the organization is supporting or creating a suitable environment for women to be able to climb up the corporate ladder and make an impact? Also, any systems or practices around mentorship or career growth?
Sure. So there are two aspects to it. One is, of course, from like an organization standpoint, Advantage Club is what you call like a proper definition of a startup, right? So we're 300 people. We're working across more than 100 countries. We have people in US, in Philippines, and in Dubai, other than India. So, and being a female founder, growth of women professionals in my organization is of paramount importance to me. So, even at this stage, we kind of track diversity, where 38%, in terms of women in our organization, which by industry standards is good, but I feel it. I still want to take it to 50%, and then I'll feel that okay, we are there where we want to be. From a growth standpoint, I personally, mentor the women who are part of Advantage Club. The overall, I have a lot of one-on-ones with the women professionals here. And the women who I have mentored in my early days have also become mentors now for other women in the organization. From a platformization standpoint, we have our communities which are open to everyone, including our own organizations and our clients as well, where women could connect with other women. There are mentorship groups where you could have, uh, women mentors or leaders have run mentorship programs, have one-on-ones being created on the platform by using technology for these women. And from a leadership standpoint, like I mentioned in my previous answer as well, have those group conversations once a while, which can enable women go forward. One of the things which I typically, and I just wanted to add to Geetha's point around, and I love what HDFC is doing for enabling women coming back from a break. And I understand it's a very hard problem to solve. We've had a few women come back from breaks and their career trajectories have not been impacted at all. That's something we take care of. I personally, my daughter turned 6 months old, so I gave birth to a child myself 6 months ago. So I've gone through that journey and I know how hard it is. But if as women, I feel we're stuck in an organization which is not having great initiatives like HDFC to maintain leadership. It is also important for women to kind of ensure that once they're back from a break, you kind of restart as if nothing ever changed, right? As if you're back to your 6-month-old self. Invest in help if help is needed. End of the day, as a leader, reliability becomes important for any organization. And how, as a woman leader, you can make yourself indispensable in the organization, that really defines your career trajectory. And if I look at Ajanta, I look at Geethaa, they will resonate with me. I'm sure they've had a lot of challenges, but end of the day, you've got to do what you got to do. So I'm sure they have navigated a lot of challenges and they've reached to where they have reached because they have continued being resilient and ensure that the career trajectory keeps going forward.
Yeah.
What are the policies and practices in your organization to support women who are returning after a career break?
Well, some of them I just articulated, but let me just take that as a broad sense. So, career break for women, we realized can come because they are, going on a maternity break and coming back. They're also the primary caregiver if a family member is ailing as well. So, career breaks can be for a multitude of the reasons, and more often than not, the woman's career is impacted more than the male member in the family. So, solutioning for this, therefore, is critical. So, like I mentioned earlier, one is the performance gap that she will experience when she is not at work. Now, to the extent that it is possible, if we can protect that, if the person was a high performer at the time that before she went on the break, can we ensure that continuity of that performance assessment stays for whatever meaningful period of time? It cannot go on for a long period, but up to a year, certainly. Secondly, will she get compromised on her grade and roles that she is wanting to play? There, as best as possible, if we are able to protect that, and policies should certainly support that. If we are able to do that, then that's a big thing that she can do. If we can give training and learning and skill building support to bring her up to pace with what's happening in the industry, what is the latest, what is happening inside the organization, that's something that we do as well. Also, having the managers and the colleagues be mentor and coaches to ensure that they settle down quickly post the break is another thing that we are continuously training managers and enabling them for. So few of these things help to ease the transition. And I still believe one of the biggest one is to allow for flexibility as and when she needs it. And as I have always held that during these 8, 9 years, from the age of 27 to about 35, if we are able to support them uh,
I
to
think a little
ensure,
tech challenge again. And there is one question, Ajanta, if
can't
you
hear.
could
Is
respond to
it?
that what are some key practices women can do to build more presence and visibility in the workplace?
Um, Pushing boundaries and getting out of comfort zones. You know, if you are already working with stakeholders who
They
you
can
have
hear?
ease of with, go beyond that. I think immediately after the call, you can just put down the name of the stakeholder who you are, or you kind of avoid meeting for whatever reason, but that person is a key decision maker. So make it a point to go and meet that person. So I think constantly pushing boundaries, getting out of your comfort zone, having regular conversation with the key stakeholders, and then keep on pivoting if the current situation is not aligned to your career goals.
Yeah,
So constantly doing all these things.
absolutely. And I remember that there was one communication I had with some women, and they said the men always take the decisions after work, the work, hours are over. So then I said, well, you'll have to then hang around with the boys after the work hours are over, because that's when decisions are supposedly made. But I think, what I get is that, just strategize, decide who the people are with whom you need to build visibility and go on. You have to get out of, you know, kind of trying to hide and allow yourself to shine by going and
Yes,
meeting up with all these people.
yes, of course.
Yeah.
Okay.
I just wanted to add to that point, Anu, where you said that the boys' club. Now, boys' club thing is something we are actively also trying to bust into, in the sense, when these late evening meetings or after party, after drinks sessions, important discussions do happen in those, and we are trying to sensitize our young male leaders as well, that to make these conversations inclusive. Even if you are going on a personal bonhomie, to come back and update the concerned team member, and and this has been for long an issue, where certainly my generation has faced that, and we have lived through it. But if we can make it a better place for our women and more inclusive place for the younger women coming along the way, then
Yeah.
we should. So we are actively working on sensitizing on some of these as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think the sensitization is in the workplace, but
Yeah.
socialization happens at home and in our
Yeah, that's true.
society. So I think each one of
Yeah.
us also in our own
Mhm.
homes, etc., can
Of
make a
course.
big difference.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
both girls as well as boys, how do we work with them? So we are almost running out of time. So my
Yes.
one, and I just want one word as a response from three of you, which is that, what is the leadership lesson you have learned that you wish you knew earlier when you just started? So maybe a short one, because we need to conclude also. So Ajanta, let's start with you. One leadership lesson that you wish you had learned earlier.
Build your own business case right from the beginning of your career. Keep on building it.
Okay. See?
I've always believed that to be a strong leader, you need to be indispensable. So do whatever it takes to be indispensable. I mean, that's how a man would also think, right? So I think as women, we always end up taking the second, it's in our nature to take the second role and be okay with that. But I think we need to be indispensable and be unabashed about it.
Right.
Yes, I will totally second what Smiti just said, and also to add that if it was just 2, 3 words that I had to put, I will say that you are ready for that big job now. Don't second guess.
So
Yeah.
put up your hand and there you
Yeah, put up your hand and don't double guess yourself on that.
Lovely, lovely. So I would really like to just conclude by saying that we've had a very, very interesting discussion, and I think a big shout out to all our brilliant panelists in spite of some tech glitches. We are very,
Sorry
very
about that. Really sorry about that.
we've been able to get a lot of insights from you about how to grow women. And I want to thank all the people who have joined us. Thank you so much for your interesting question. Thank you for taking time out and being part of this fireside chat. And we are really, I think the reason we are all here is because we are committed to a equitable workforce. We are committed
Yes.
to equitable nation and an equitable world where every person's voice makes a difference and it is respected. And that's the reason we are here. And even though we are going to celebrate Women's Day soon, I hope we have a day when we don't need to single out women for celebration of Women's Day. It's a day of celebration for all of humanity. But till then, we will continue to do what we have to do. So thank you, everybody, and have a very, very nice evening. Thanks and God bless.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.